You make the most beautiful sunsets, and I am amazed by your palette of purples, oranges, pinks, and blues, and only you could use the sky to display your glory, and I am in awe of its beauty. Night after night, with just enough light to view it, and oh, you make the most beautiful sunsets, and I am amazed by your palette of purples, oranges, pinks, and blues, and only you could use the sky to display your glory, and I am in awe of its beauty. Night after night, with just enough light to view it, and oh, I'm reminded of your steadfast love and faithfulness, and oh, Lord, you always prove that you always come through again and again. You always come through again and again.
Tamika, that was such a beautiful song, an original, you said.
Yes.
Wow. And what was the inspiration for that?
I was coming home actually one day from work, and I got stopped dead trap in my steps and looked up, and there was the perfect sunset happening, and I just caught this frame of the trees on my street and looking at it, and I was like, wow, God, you're faithful. Like, you do this every night. Like, every single time you're gonna give us a sunset, and it's gonna be that amazing every single time. Like, you have time to paint. Like, the world's pretty jacked up, but you have time to paint with these beautiful colors. And if you're faithful in this, what else are you faithful in?
Faithful. Ooh,
Yeah.
I love that word. Love that word. And it just kind of reminded me of something you and I talked about just a little while ago of what does faith mean? What does it mean to you?
It's a complicated concept because I grew up believing that I was certain about every aspect of
Right.
my faith.
Right.
And the older I have become, I have become less certain of my faith. I heard somebody say when I was a little kid, they said, the older I get, the less I believe. But that which I believe more strongly.
That's
Ooh.
good. That's
And I
good.
never understood that as a kid. And now I've got grandkids and I'm the other side of 50, and you start to see things different. And I grew up very certain, which didn't allow conversation or relationships. And now I'm more intrigued. I ask more questions, and faith's taken on a different feel to me than it did when I was so certain of everything, you know? Because you can't be certain or it's not faith.
Right.
That's called proof.
Right.
And I don't have proof for my faith. I have evidence.
Yeah.
I have what I feel. I have anecdotal evidence in my life, but I can't prove to you what I believe. I can't concretely say yes. So I need to stay more open to questions and ask. And I don't know, that's how my faith has evolved as I've gotten older. And I think it's made me a better friend, a better person.
That's such a beautiful perspective on it. And what about you, Jack? I'd love to know your thoughts on this.
Oh, that is such a great subject, and I love what Kevin said, and I love that song.
Thank you.
I really want to hear the second verse. But we'll get that out of you one day. It's just interesting to think about what you said in the song, and also what Kevin was saying, that somehow we have this concept that faith is blind, right? And yet, if you think about it, because you're talking about a creator and creating a sunset, it's very difficult if you look just at a painting to imagine the painting without a painter,
Right.
right? And it's so there's that interesting combination between faith and reason, which we all struggle with.
Sure.
We're all trying to sort it out. But when you think about it, the idea of a creation like the one that we experience daily without a creator.
Yeah.
Kurt Vonnegut had a great line. He said, trying to imagine that the world was just suddenly shaped out of nothing would be like imagining a Boeing 707 being created by a hurricane rolling through a junkyard. Right? And so the perfection that's evident, again, means that there's a source of perfection.
Amen.
Yeah.
Right? And the fact that we aspire for perfection is, I think, a very powerful indicator of why we have faith.
Yeah.
I have a friend who says, when I say, why do you believe in God? He says, because I want to.
That's right.
I love that. And I think that's such a great spot to get back to this in just a few minutes. Welcome back. You mentioned how there's certainty of your faith. Sometimes you felt like it kept you from opening up the conversation with other people, and I think this is why it's so great to have these sorts of conversations. But being able to have open conversation with people of different faiths, I think what you're saying, like that certainty, right? So not being so tight on that and having a little room to learn and to experience faith and beliefs from other people's points of view, other people's perspective. How do you?
I think God is relational at his very core.
Yeah.
And if I remained as I was in my thinking, my certainty, I would not have the relationships I have with people because I didn't have conversations. I had arguments.
Yeah.
And I wasn't trying to get to know you.
Yes.
I was trying to convert you. And I think it was a stumbling block to relationships with people.
Interesting.
And so the less certain I became didn't mean I didn't believe it,
Right.
but allowed me to have conversation and welcome people of different faiths into relationship, into a, I don't know, there's something worldwide about the spirituality of God.
Absolutely.
And I feel like my certainty avoided that. And I like being more open to having conversation. I'm more curious.
Yeah.
I can't be a jerk if I'm curious.
Exactly.
I could be a jerk when I was certain. And I don't want to be a jerk. I want to be inclusive. I want to have conversation. Because I don't know, I relate, because that's who God is.
Absolutely.
God is relational.
Yeah, that's the love. That's how people
Absolutely.
know that
That's
you
it,
have
yeah.
God, right? It's
I believe
the
that.
love that they see in
Yep.
relating to others and having conversation. And I agree 100%. There was a lot of like, I'm not even listening to your side of this dialogue. I'm just waiting for my turn to speak.
Yeah.
Because whatever I have
I'm
to say
building
is
my
more
argument.
important. Yeah. I just, and sometimes we do that. You know, we do that in prayer. We do that in, like, if you're in a group prayer session, you're like, hey, what am I going to say that's going to one up that person? Like, no, it's not the point. The point is to listen, and to disagree well,
Yep.
right? Like we don't. I think you were telling me of a quote that someone said. Was it George Clooney that says, "Our discourse has become coarse."
Yes.
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 Where we don't even
That's
know
good.
how to disagree well and how to have varying viewpoints. And it's like if more people would just say, let's talk, and not build up their argument, but just know what you believe and listen to what other people believe, so that even if you want to convince them, at least now you know what to say.
Absolutely. Exactly. I absolutely agree with you.
That's
Absolutely.
really beautiful, the way you said that too. I was thinking about it in relationship to my dad, because my dad had these little simple wisdoms.
Yeah.
And was known to his friends as Honest John, right? I always loved that. But he used to say, you know, when you're with people, always try to be the last person to speak.
That's smart.
And I just think about that in terms of the capacity to listen and the capacity then to really be able to hear people and feel like you're connecting because you are listening.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's
So
really-
good.
Yeah.
To listen, to be the last person speaking, and you also mentioned to listen. There's a huge difference between hearing and listening. I mean, how many times with our parents will tell us something, or your spouse, or your grandchild, or your child will tell us, and you hear it, but it doesn't really register. So you're not actually listening to it, right? And I think it's such a beautiful thing to bring that up when we talk about faith, like listening, right? So like having that deep trust, but also listening to the signs and listening to the wisdoms and praying, but also like listening to the answers that we get and having faith and certainty.
See, that I think that comes from our posture.
Yeah.
You can say you want to listen all you want,
Right.
but if you really are certain about what you think, you don't want to listen because
Right.
you don't
This is
need
true.
new information.
Correct.
This is true.
If you genuinely have a posture of curiosity, I want to know what makes you
Yeah.
you. I want to know what makes you you. I want to know that, and you can give it lip service, but the truth comes in. Are you listening?
Yeah.
And I think that's where I noticed a shift in my life. I actually took a time where I actually started to actually want to listen.
Yeah.
I didn't before.
Yeah.
I just made it look good.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you got to have that posture of I want to learn. I want to
Yeah.
be curious. Right?
We'll be right back. The three of you guys are musicians. You've been in the music field for a few years now, and you've had records and you've had things out there and
Records
successful coming in the works,
Yes.
right? So by all means, you've had successful careers in the music industry, in the creative field. Now, as a creative myself, I'm not a musician by any means, but I have been in the creative field working for myself for the past 8 years.
Wow.
And talking about faith. You have to have huge faith in not just your craft, but also in something out there, a higher being or something, or your purpose, right? You have to have that faith in that bigger thing. What are your experiences with that?
I think specifically in the music world, you have to know why you're doing it, especially nowadays when music doesn't quite pay the rent. Where you have to know, I am in the music because I feel called to it. This is my assignment almost, and the real love for it. And I think, to be honest, there are times where I'm like, okay, why am I doing this? Let me make sure I'm doing it for the right reasons. I'll give you a really cool example. When I was younger, I told my mother I was going to be a music teacher because I just figured that was easy money, and it just made sense. Like I could play and sing all day, and then I could have summers off. And it was really a selfish thing. It wasn't for good reason. It wasn't for love of children or any of that. It was terrible. And I got to about second year university, and a friend at the time was like, what if you hate teaching music and you're going to do it for the rest of your life, and then you go home and you don't want to play? And that really messed me up for the rest of my university career, to the point where I put off the career side
Right.
and just focused on finishing school. And my mother was a little disappointed because she had told all her friends that I was going to be a music teacher. And God has a funny sense of humor, because I went and taught vocal lessons a little bit. I don't do it now, so don't call me for that. But I went and taught vocal lessons for a little bit. But before then, it was like, oh no, am I going to get like a bunch of sixth graders? I'm going to have to teach them hot crust buns on the recorder or something, and just want to die when I go home. But music is my thing.
Yeah.
And so what am I going to do with that? And I really had to believe that, like, what do you want me to do with my life? Because singing is it. I'm not good at math, and I don't want to be a doctor or a lawyer. God bless them. We need them. God bless them. But like, what do I do? And it's that sing the next right song, keep practicing the scales, keep learning, take the vocal lessons. I still take vocal lessons. You're never too old to keep working on your craft. And so it also has practical application. Like, what can I do right now to keep the dream alive practically? What does that mean? Who am I calling? Whose gig am I singing background vocals for? Because it's not always about me. The gift isn't always about me either. And
But
so I
giving
think
it the respect and the devotion that it
giving it the respect and
requires.
devotion, I
Yeah.
think is almost obedience to God who gave it to me, right? Like to steward well the things that you were given. And so it's like not wise for me to, go screaming at a match or something the day before and then go sing a gig the next
Right.
day. That's just not wise.
Right.
That might be fun, but it's not wise if I have a commitment to use my voice somewhere. And so just little things like that, and knowing like this is me putting faith to work.
I love that.
One thing I learned is that there's the gift of being creative,
Right.
and then there's the revenue and the business side of it.
Right.
Right.
And the two don't always meet. But if the business side is not good, that doesn't negate the gift. And so we've often put a price tag on the gift.
Yes.
And so if you do well in the business side, they go, oh, well, his gift was great.
Right.
And if you don't, the gift was less. There's something about taking a creative process and singing with passion and being creative in music that touches lives, whether it ever does anything in the pocketbook or not. And I think we need to make sure that these are two different skill sets.
Yes.
Interesting.
But the gift is the gift.
Yeah.
Whether I make money at this thing or not, I can't stop doing it.
I love that. I love
That's
that.
that's where I
Yeah.
am.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And Jack, we're going to come back with your story because I would love to hear it from your words.
Be happy to. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Tamika. I'm very inspired.
Yes, Jack, I'd love to hear your perspective on, or continuing maybe what Kevin, or adding on to what Kevin said.
Well, I think the biggest struggle for art, and I'm just saying generally artistic people, I believe all people are creative because we're created by a creator who's very creative. So obviously, so the creative impulse is a very powerful impulse. And I think when it's connected to a spiritual focus, like Tamika was talking about, and Kevin, it's so important that be a guiding principle.
Yeah.
Like that's the real reason you're doing it, is because God has given you something to do. And so use your talent for that purpose.
Yeah.
And try to uplift others through that gift, right? And I think if we can do that, then we're fulfilling the purpose of that gift, because that gift isn't just to be hidden.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a gift that really has at its core the ability to be creative, and that creative capacity needs to be nourished through practice, through spiritual practice too. You know, like I just learned early, if I prayed before I performed or wrote or anything, it would always be better
Yeah.
than if I felt like it was me, right? So be the instrument, right?
Be the instrument.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Be the instrument. I always say that I feel like people that express their gifts, I always say, it's not even about you, it's God expressing through you, God expressing this gift and this purpose through you. And at some point you have to realize, like, it's not even about you, you're just, like you said, the instrument, right? So giving it the respect, giving it the devotion, but knowing that you are just the instrument, and that it also kind of gives you more responsibility, right? Because you're like, oh, I'm responsible for this. This is huge. This is major. And I have to give it the respect that it needs, So it kind of, that faith kind of gives you a little bit more of like oomph. Like when you're having those hard days, and I'm sure we've all been through it, when we have those commitments and we have those hard days, and we have to remember, wow, I have this gift and I get to use it. Of course, I get to use it.
But also to remember that you are not your gift. Right. So I lost my voice for 3 weeks one time and nearly had a meltdown because that I need my voice, right, to do things. And it was a friend that was just like, you're valuable still. And so I think that's good for creatives to remember that as you do this faith walk, you are valuable and your gift is valuable, and putting those together is a wonderful, beautiful gift that we get to give to the world.
I love that reminder. Oh, I love that reminder so much.
I would like to share one quick story. I'm not going to be too long. Growing up in the church, always singing gospel music, I was asked to go do a country show at a casino for a month. And I was like, I saw the paycheck and I was like, yeah, I feel called to do that. and I had to struggle.
Right.
I'm going to sing secular music, as you would call it, as if you're in the church.
Yes.
This is secular music at a casino,
Yeah.
and I'm like, what am I going to do with this?
Right.
Every day I sang. Every single day I sang, 32 shows.
Wow.
Somebody would come up to me and said, are you a person of faith? Do you go to church?
I just got chills.
And it was like God hit me over the head with a 2x4, and he said, just because you don't say my name doesn't mean I don't come through you.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And I think if he gave us the gift, no matter what we are, he comes out of us. God, the creator, comes out of us.
Absolutely.
And that was a wonderful lesson for me to understand. He gave you the gift, go do it. Make a living, do the business. The calling never changes. The creativity never changes. I'm coming through. And when I can sing with passion, he does his thing, whatever God chooses to do, that's not my business.
Right.
And that takes all the pressure off.
There's a great quote I read that music is like a ladder, right? And that the soul can actually ascend and see a different horizon,
That's good.
a different sunset, a different sunrise, because the music is the one reality that really allows you to see the splendors beyond the tomb, right? And that connection that we feel when we sing, when we play music, when that music is for a higher purpose, it really lifts you up that ladder, and you see a world different than you would ever know. And I remember having that experience as a kid, playing Bach and thinking, "Wow, this is a different feeling than I've ever had in my life." And it was that feeling that made me say, "That's why I need to do this."
Why.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Love that.
This was great. Thank you for being so open and sharing so much with me. And just
feel
thank
like we
you
just
for being
scratched
so
the
open.
surface.
We definitely just scratched the surface. There's definitely more conversations having to do with faith and beliefs and whatever label you subscribe to. I think the deeper core of it, right? The divine truth, the divine love, the divine knowing of God within everything is it's beautiful to be able to come back to that conversation with different people and sit by the fire and have these conversations.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
You make the most beautiful sunsets, and I am amazed by your palette of purples, oranges, pinks, and blues. And only you could use the sky to display your glory, and I am in awe of its beauty. Night after night, with just enough light to view it, and oh,